getting dark. So just to make sure you're taking care of yourselves is the main thing, because this is hard work. So be mindful of the things that you need to do to nurture yourself. So at this time, we will move forward in having our welcome, the attendance. And at the time that your name is called, if you have any conflict of interest, if you could advise that at that time, that will be most helpful. Stephen Handy.
Present. Conflict. Mobile Navigation Center.
Liz Mallard.
Present. No conflict.
Deirdre Childress. Alex Smith. Jamie Villegas. Catherine Knowles.
Present. No conflict.
Dr. Xadria Inslee.
Present, no conflicts.
Deanna Allen Robb. I'm present, no conflicts. Kanitha Patterson. India Pungarcher. Amber Ellis. Freddie, I promise, November, I'm gonna have this. And I don't know how, you're such an energetic personality. Valkersel. It's the southern accent, I apologize, because I know my name is not easy to get.
Present. Conflict, city and state funding.
Thank you. Tracy Pekovich. Councilwoman Evans.
Present. No conflict.
Councilwoman Sepulveda. Jason Ross. Ashley Horton. Corey Hammond. Wendell Seagroves. Thank you, Wendell, for that. I don't want to be the only one up here. Rika X.
Present. No conflict.
Adam Hansen.
Present. No conflict.
Tom Turner.
Present and, no conflicts at this time.
Okay, and we know we have April. I saw Treva, Susie. And so we have a new administration, as we are all aware of, with our new mayor. Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm going to give a disclaimer. It's homecoming week, and my mind is not really at work, so I'm going to do better. But Mayor O'Connell, and so once we get the representative from his office, we will definitely advise you all. And we will also have a new vice mayor appointee to the board. So once those positions are filled, we will definitely share that information with you all as more information is to come. At this time, we will not have public comments because we do not have any action items. And we will now take a moment just to remember those who have lost their lives during the month of September and the end of September and the beginning of October. So if after I call the names, if we could just take a moment of silence to remember those individuals. Andre Old School Clow. Brian Treetop Hancock, Michael Allen Kinslow, and Aaron Carpenter. If we could take a moment just to remember their lives. Okay, thank you all. You have been in receipt via email as well as before you the September 2023 meeting minutes. If you could review those minutes, and at this time we will take any edits to those if you have any. Any edits, corrections? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward in our agenda. And we will have our report from April Calvin, Office of Homeless Services Director.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm a little flustered today. I walked in beside one of my team members, and she took a tumble and fell and hit her head. So if you all know and love Vi, keep her in your prayers. But I think she's doing okay. More to come. Hannah is checking on her for us. So a couple of really great, important things that I forgot to put in the information that I sent out. The Nashville Rescue Mission will have their ribbon cutting on October 25th. So there is a way to RSVP for that if you all are interested. I don't have that information in front of me. I just hit a button and lost all of my notes. I'm really shaking right now. Sorry, guys. Here we go. And then there is also a grand opening for a nice housing opportunity. I think for almost 18 months, we've talked about Shangri-La for about 18 months, I know. And I think that they are really, really close. I'll still say that. But there's another affordable housing option here in Nashville. I think Council Lady Erin Evans is aware of a Hermitage location. Now, at this point in time, they are not accepting Section 8 vouchers and things that our people will come along with, but they are really deeply affordable, and they're single-room occupancy, like hotel conversion, same as Shangri-La, except for this one will not have supportive services attached. But we had a meeting with the developer yesterday. He's having a grand opening on October 12th at 4 o'clock for the one in Hermitage. He's looking to revitalize 2 other hotel conversions that will come on late January, early February, 120 units of housing in Wallace, 97 Wallace Road, which is really close to the roadway location, but this location will be able to accept Section 8 vouchers and other housing subsidies. He's worked closely with Councilmember Sandra Sepulveda, and they're looking to move forward with that. He already has site control of the location. And he's going to do that again by mid-2024 at a location in Murfreesboro as well. So for me, I'm thinking of like 300 units of housing coming on in less than 6 months, thinking of opportunities for our folks that actually have vouchers or those that, you know, maybe have disability income, or some of the veterans that have disability income that can maybe afford the location in Hermitage. Had a great meeting with the developer, and he's super excited to be working in this space. So we are still thinking of Shangri-La. They're still moving forward with their initiative. It's just a little bit slower than what this developer was able to bring on. Participatory budget, we talked about that here. There's been turnover in staff at the mayor's office. I'm not sure of who's over the participatory budget at this point in time, but more information to come on that. Fabian was working with us on having opportunities for people that are experiencing homelessness to be able to vote on some of the initiatives, and would use locations like the Nashville Rescue Mission, Room in the Inn, and the Salvation Army for being able to use that as an address. And this is a different type of voting, not like the normal election process. This is where they could vote on their phone. They just need an actual address in order to be able to proceed with their vote. So several of you all may be aware, we just closed our 3rd camp in the last year. TA truck stop. I keep calling it HUD TA, but it's not. It's the TA truck stop. I've had HUD TA in my mind since 18 months as well. TA truck stop was a location that's owned by the state, has a little bit of metro land and a little bit of private land as well, but it's mainly a state initiative. There is a prioritization team. Our community agreed and decided on that to be the next location. I don't think we were moving fast enough for the state. They initially was coming with the date, or initially gave us a date on when it would close, and because it was already one that we had decided on as a community, I gave them a counter date, and they accepted. So October 6th was the last day of housing for that location. 32 individuals resided there. Only one decided that they did not want housing and that they were going to move on to another location. Our outreach team is familiar with him. They know his name, and they will continue to follow up with him. There was one that needed some mental health attention, and Partners in Care had to assist him, but he has since been released, and our outreach team is helping him to relocate into the Madison Mobile Housing Navigation Center. 2 actually moved into permanent housing. It's exciting when you go to a camp and there's someone with a Section 8 voucher in their pocket. Our housing navigation team was able to help with connecting him to permanent housing options. So really great stuff happening there. The remainder are at the 2 interim housing locations. And receiving services. One great thing about this camp, we've talked for several months on how outreach should, the 2 basic things that need to happen for people living outside, which would be getting their vital documents and getting them enrolled into coordinated entry. So there was our outreach team and several others that deployed services there. I think there's only 2 that do not have all of their vital documents. So that means that when we talk about housing options and housing opportunities, hopefully those permanent housing options, hopefully those will come on a lot faster because they actually have the 2 vital things that's needed in order to get connected to housing. One last thing I'll talk about is the $50 million report. Metro Council was not in session last month, so this month, next Tuesday, we will present the last 2 months worth of data for what's going on with the $50 million ARPA award. The MDHA, they have $25 million of it. There was a RFP that closed. Well, I was going to close on the 29th, but I think it's actually of September. But I think it's actually open until all of the funds are expensed at this point. Okay, very good. And so that is the affordable gap loan. And then there is the $4 million capacity building grant that will close on October 13th, this Friday. I have a whole lot more, but I'll end there. Any questions?
All right, thank you for that. We are moving forward to our collaborative applicant report by Susie.
Morning. I'm Susie Tolmie, and I'm the homeless coordinator at MDHA. The week before, on the 28th of September, another near-death experience ended. We got our application in for the continuum of care funding process, and now, breathing sighs of relief. I do want to thank folks who contributed to what was truly a team effort. April, her staff, Allison, Bill, Hannah, Sally, and then editing experience from Sarah Hoffpower, who was contracted by Stacy at the mayor's office. I'm hoping that the application scores high enough so that we will get 3 new projects, 1 bonus, DV bonus or domestic violence bonus project, and 2 permanent supportive housing projects. So keep your fingers crossed, and HUD announces typically maybe around Christmas time, sometimes January, February, but I'll get word out as soon as we hear something. So looking forward, we've all been sort of possessed by this application. The Charter Revision Committee is going to be meeting to at least get into compliance this year with a review of the charter, and I'll get those materials out to you at some point. The collaborative applicant application process is well underway. We had 1 letter of intent submitted by the deadline. Letters of intent were not required, but there was 1 letter that was submitted by the Office of Homeless Services. The Performance Evaluation Committee has been charged with reviewing any applications that do come in by the October 19th deadline, and they're going to review and score any applications in a called meeting on November 7th. And then there will be a vote by the general membership at their November meeting on the 16th. The general membership meeting is occurring next Thursday, the 19th, and we are trying to incorporate a back and forth training opportunity following up after the anti-racism conference that we had. So we're we're working with the logistics and the AV system at the Metro Health Department. So it will be at a different venue, and I'll get the word out about that later on this week. Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you for that, Susie. We will now move forward to updates with our HMIS, which is the Homelessness Management Information Systems monthly data report, and a special report by Hannah. Absolutely.
Does that work? Okay. We have a new monthly report structure this month, so I'm going to talk about it a little more in detail. You'll notice a couple of the reports only have September data. That is because with HUD updates, there are some reports in our HMIS that are not working right now, but next month there will be 12 months worth of data for those reports. How the report goes is the first 2 pages are data about who experienced homelessness in Nashville in September and some information about over the past 12 months. So 2,223 people experienced homelessness in Nashville at some point during the month of September. That was in 1,923 households. 154 of those households were families, and 1,769 were adult-only households, so either individual adults or adult couples. That graph below there is just going to show that breakdown for the past 12 months eventually of the total people as well as the different household types. I know we often have questions about how many people who are homeless are families versus individuals, so I'm hoping we can have some more information in here about that. Below, we have some information about special populations. So we can see that 8% of those people were veterans, 10% were youth aged 18 to 24, 51% were experiencing chronic homelessness, so have a disabling condition and have been experiencing long-term homelessness, and 10% were newly homeless that month, so they had just entered the system. Below that, again, when the report is working, we're going to have information about chronic homelessness over 12 months because that is a priority population determined in our strategic plan. On the back of that first page, this top graph goes over essentially a lot of what was in the previous monthly report. So how many people experiencing homelessness are being served by each of those project types in HMIS. So we can see, for example, 1,296 people were in street outreach. So theoretically, that's 1,296 people who were living outdoors during the month of September. 240 people were served in emergency shelters, 510 in supportive services projects, 501 people who were in rapid rehousing who had not yet moved into the housing, and 190 people in transitional housing. Below that, we have some more information about race and ethnicity and gender. Again, something that you all ask a lot of questions about that I'm hoping we'll be able to dive deeper into on this regular report. So these graphs are about specifically who is experiencing homelessness in September 2023. On the left, we can see 42% of people experiencing homelessness in September were Black, 49% were white, 4% were Hispanic or Latino, 3% were multiracial, and 1% were other. And then for gender, most, 58% were men, 41% were women, and less than 1% or 1% were non-binary, transgender, or other. Finally, the bottom 2 pie charts are specifically diving into race by household type. So the pie chart on the bottom left is talking about in family households, what is the racial breakdown? So 67% of people in families experiencing homelessness were Black and 19% were white, whereas individuals, we saw 38% were Black and 55% were white. This is an important distinction because oftentimes we look at those sort of grouped together and it doesn't give us the detail we need to know that when we're talking about the racial breakdown of homelessness, most of the people we see experiencing homelessness, at least in Nashville, who are Black are in family units. The next 2 pages are going to be very similar, almost the same data, but instead of being about who experienced homelessness, it's about who was housed in September. So the goal here being that we could look at these pages side by side and see how many people were homeless, and then what we did on the housing for that same population so that we can more easily make connections about how we're doing. So you'd be able to connect to that, that while 2,223 people were experiencing homelessness, 196 people were housed in September. 103 households, 41 were families, and 63 were adult-only households. Also, a new thing in here is going to be a shout out to our agencies who are housing the most people. So in September, Safe Haven Family Shelter housed 21 households. Operation Stand Down housed 21 households. And the Salvation Army housed 11 households. Those are our top three. Below that, again, is the same information about special populations so that we can look side by side. And we saw earlier that 8% of the people experiencing homelessness were veterans, but here 19% of the people we housed were veterans. So we've been very successful in housing veterans. 8% of the people who we housed were youth aged 18 to 24. 22% were experiencing chronic homelessness. And again, we saw earlier that 51% of the people experiencing homelessness were experiencing chronic homelessness. And the average length of stay from entry to exit, to housing exit, was 166 days. Below that is our information about what type of housing people were moving into. So 93 people moved into rapid rehousing, which is our largest destination. 39 people moved into housing with no subsidy. And 23 people moved into public housing. We had a huge month for people moving into public housing. It's never been that high before. I double checked it like 3 times to make sure it was true because it's usually like 4. So that's great news. And finally, on the last page is that same information about race and ethnicity and gender and project types about the people who moved into housing. So we can see that while in September, 42% of people experiencing homelessness were Black, 52% of the people we housed were Black, and 29% were white, 10% were Hispanic or Latino, and 8% were multiracial. And while 58% of people who were experiencing homelessness were men, 52% of the people we housed were men, and 47% were women. And that is the new monthly report. Are there any questions on this?
Thank you, Hannah, for this report, by the way. What is the retention rate over the last 12 to 24 months, would you say? Or do you capture that data?
We do capture that data. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it is in our system performance measures that we report to HUD every year. So we'll be working on that soon and I'll bring it here. Last year, within 2 years, about 11% of people returned to homelessness. So it was 89% retention rate over a 2-year period. And we'll be doing another report this year.
Just a reminder that prior to speaking, if you all could hit your mic so that we are making sure it's recorded.
Which button is that, Chair?
It is the person that has like a echo voice beside it. To the right. Freddie and then Tom, do you have a comment? Perfect.
Hannah, like always, your report rocks. Thank you for everything you do for the city, you and your department. Maybe I know I'm half blind, but can you give us the total number for the entire fiscal year of people who move into permanent housing? Do we have that?
Yes. It's not on here because of the broken reports, but last month it was like 1,600 something, and we had a good month, so it's probably 1,700-ish.
1,700 for
And
the
in the
entire
future,
fiscal
it
year?
will be on the report
Okay, 1,700 for the entire fiscal year.
for 12 months.
Okay.
And Hannah, just to add on to my colleague's question about the retention, when you're talking about that and maybe a few other these, if you could compare them to national averages to see if we're kind of overperforming or underperforming, and if there might be a reason why we're better or worse than any of those. I don't know if they'll all be relevant, but some might be.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
retention.
I know that on that retention, that was very good compared to the national average, but part of that reason is that we don't have data from the Nashville Rescue Mission in HMIS. So if someone returns to homelessness and only goes to the Nashville Rescue Mission and doesn't see a street outreach worker or anything like that, we're not going to know in HMIS, so it won't be reflected. So when we do get that data, I expect the retention rate to be lower.
Got it. Thank you. Well done.
And then for the special data report, Shanley from the HMIS Oversight and Data Committee is going to come talk to us.
We go, sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is Shanley Degnan. I'm the chair of the HMIS Oversight Committee. I'm actually representing that committee as well as the Data Committee, which is chaired by Elena Boyer, who was not able to come this morning. But for those of you who don't know, those two committees have been meeting successfully together for about the last 6 months or so. Most of our work was quite paralleled, and in some cases the exact same, so it made sense for us to join our efforts. We wanted to bring to you guys today some of the work that we've started on that has informed the recent Performance Evaluation Committee's COC rating and ranking process. This has already been, just based on the schedule of meetings, this has already been presented to the general membership, but we wanted to put it on your radar. So each year, the Performance Evaluation Committee rates and ranks applications that come in for the COC competition. And ideally, communities have a data-driven set of priorities that help committees like that make their decisions based on the actual needs in each community. So we have been missing a bit of that in our community, and so the Data Committee and HMIS Oversight Committee took that on, and we're going to be working on that to eventually bring to you a more formal report and presentation. But the preliminary piece that we wanted to bring to you was the statement that we came up with that we presented to the PEC. This was all based on data, primarily HMIS data. Hannah worked with us to help us pull lots of information together that essentially proved what anecdotally we talk about all the time in this community. So I'll read the statement that we came up with. Based on HMIS data and various other local community reports and best practices, the Data Committee and HMIS Oversight Committee has found that there is a glaring need for permanent supportive housing programs to be funded locally that house adult households without children experiencing homelessness. This needs some finessing. This is a very HUD-heavy phrasing, the adult households without children. Basically what that means, our data shows, which love the new report because it talked a lot to the data points that we looked at as well. Locally, there's evidence that a majority of people experiencing homelessness are single adults. What we also found when we looked deeper is that that is the population that has the fewest housing resources available to them in our community. And so what we are hoping with this statement and moving forward in our continued investigation of the research is that this and, maybe a more robust set of priorities will eventually be adopted by this council and will help sort of guide funding decisions beyond just the continuum of care funding, but, broader. When new opportunities arise, let's look to the data to show us where the need really is. Do you want to add anything? Great. Do you guys have any questions?
I had a slight question as I was looking at the data, and job well done, and I think it was very nuanced and detailed. The question I had, though, is looking at the numbers, it looks like it was about 8% of the total homelessness population that was housed. And just for a frame of reference for myself, what is like the general goal or metric that we're shooting for in terms of on a month-to-month basis in terms of the percentage in terms of how many people are housed?
So I don't think we have that. Part of the strategic plan that was just passed was for this group specifically and the general membership of the COC to set those specific metrics. I think for a long time in our community, we didn't feel like we had the data in order to really know what was happening and set goals, but now we do. So now it's time to do that.
And also, just an FYI, some of that takes place within case conferencing, depending on where you are. So for instance, in the veterans case conferencing, at one point, we had a goal to house 20 veterans a month. So some of that comes with the work, which is a later discussion that we do with the organization Built for Zero Community Solutions that helps coach the cities. And we are a large city, and they are working collectively on how we look at, in this specific, we're looking at family homelessness and veteran homelessness. And so sometimes those goals are set within those particular work groups.
I'll also add the strategic plan focused on chronic homelessness as a priority population, which is also what the report from the HMIS Oversight Committee and Data Committee did. So that's why on this report, once hopefully we have a goal in reduction for chronic homelessness, we'll be able to track that each month and over 12 months.
Any other questions for either person? Well, thank you all so much for your hard work and diligence, and your continued reports that are more in-depth, Hannah, is greatly appreciated. So as I stated earlier, we do not have a representative from the mayor's office. April and I are scheduled to meet with Mayor O'Connell next week, so we hope to have more to come in terms of what his vision is around this board, what supports, and we'll hopefully be able to report those things back to you all in November. So we will move forward to new business, and we will have the Collaborative Applicant Ad Hoc Committee report by Ms. Giovanni.
Good morning. I'm going to read from this
Hold on
report.
1 second. A copy of the report is also in the packet for the board.
Great. I'm going to read from this report to make sure I don't miss any pertinent information. The ad hoc committee met. Our final meeting was on September the 18th, and that was since the last HPC meeting on September 13th. The goal of the remaining ad hoc committee members was to discuss the public comments and add to the collaborative applicant application. The committee members had a robust conversation of public comments. We requested that they be placed on the document in the new collaborative applicant. The ad hoc committee met from May 25th to September the 18th, a little less than 120 days. The task of the procedural steps to change the collaborative applicant has some suggested dates to transfer from MDHA to the new collaborative applicant. However, majority of the ad hoc committee agreed that the task was outside of the scope of the committee. Discussion about the HMIS and the committee proposed that it remain with the Office of Homeless Services, but we need to take a vote to move it from Metro Social Services to the new office and conduct the same process with HMIS next calendar year. Our main focus, the ad hoc committee developed a process for HUD-eligible entities to apply to become the collaborative applicant for Nashville-Davidson County. We reviewed several COCs, but the main city of reference that we followed was the city of St. Louis. The ad hoc committee developed a transparent time frame for the COC service providers to review and contribute through input during the COC scheduled meetings and call meetings. And then we had an opportunity for public comments located on the MDHA website. The next steps is the letters of interest that was due on October the 5th, and you all have already heard that there was only one agency that provided a letter of interest. The collaborative applicant application is due on October the 19th, and it will be submitted to the PET committee. The COC general membership will vote on the designation of the collaborative applicant and the HMIS lead remaining in the Office of Homeless Services at the November 16th general membership meeting. We do have some recommendations, and I think those are in your packets also. And I'm just going to kind of go over these just a little bit, but I'm just going to we wanted to strengthen the evaluation process. We recommend that COC create a formal ongoing process to evaluate each entity that fills one of the roles within our COC, the HMIS lead, the CE lead, and the collaborative applicant. We think we should develop a set of criteria to evaluate each entity based on the role they fill, establish an ongoing time frame for evaluations to occur, and determine if an existing committee group should perform these evaluations or if a new group needs to be established. Number two, we believe we need to formalize the ongoing process for selecting COC roles in the charter. The charter is missing a lot of procedural steps for the general membership to select entities that fill the various COC roles. We recommend that the process and the procedural steps to do so be documented in the charter so there is a clear path for the community to follow moving forward. Number three, to update the grievance selection in the charter. The charter's current grievance policy currently only gives the COC a process to follow when an egregious act has been committed and an entity must be removed from its position. Number four, we want to revisit the scope of work section of the COC rules in the charter. We recommend that this happens for all COC roles. Communications, expectations, we recommend that there be more clear expectations for how the COC roles communicate and include the community to be set in the charter for the evaluation process. And the second part of that, we believe that we need to strengthen the charter language about the former responsibilities of the collaborative applicant to maintain records for committee meetings, general membership, and HPC. And eventually, we would like for the COC meetings to be recorded. Respectfully submitted, Giovanni Aco. Are there any questions? And I would like to thank the ad hoc committee members. Hope I don't miss any names. Freddie Varvashaw, Shandley, Raven, Dee Dee Bird, and Steve Ryder were the ones that finished the entire process. It was a long 120 days. So we had a few that dropped off.
Thank you for your report. One of my questions is around St. Louis Collaborative. What was so different and why did you choose that city as a focus?
Well, the one thing I think we looked at when we looked at various cities, that was the most extensive. They had a lot of procedural steps, and then when we looked at it, we could follow it, and then it did have some similarities to Nashville-Davidson County's charter. So that's why we chose that, because it was the most comprehensive. Any more questions?
All right. Thank you all so much. Again, just to reiterate our appreciation to the committee for your hard work. We will take all of these recommendations under consideration because we are in the process of looking at a revision of the charter, and we know that also has to be reviewed. So again, thank you all, and we will hopefully, of course, this will be open whenever those revisions happen. It's open for public comment and review, so you all will have another opportunity just to make sure we captured the recommendations correctly. So thank you all. All right, moving forward in the agenda, we are at the board retreat update, which is me. But I first want to thank those new board members that were able to attend our board orientation after the last HPC meeting. Thank you for your feedback in the evaluation. It is most appreciated. That board orientation survey summary is in the packet of our board members. And I think it's great feedback, and we will make sure that those things that, anything that should have been done differently, and some of the, like for instance, the networking time and explanation of the CLC committee, and some of these other things that we will implement in the board retreat. What we will do is before scheduling the board retreat, I think at this point we are in October, and we know November and December are right around the corner, and typically not the best times to really look at a retreat, because some are closing out their fiscal years, others are, just use it or lose it time, which I don't know much about. But so what we will do is send out a Survey Monkey to look at some times in January and February for our board retreat. So be on the lookout, please, in your emails to our board committee, and choose those dates so that we can have a board retreat, probably about 4 hours, I would say. We will get that information to you all, just so that as a board, we can look at some of these things that have been lifted. And for those who may, I think the binders, we redid those binders, which I thought were more helpful this year, just a little bit better organized. And so we will have some of those available. But also, if you all have suggestions as a board of what you want to see covered in the board retreat, please email that to April and Allison Malone, and we will make sure those things get included. Any questions related to the board retreat? And plus, at that time, we should have the rest of the board members that need to be appointed, the one from the mayor's office, as well as we need to get one of our vice mayoral appointees had to resign, and so we need to get that person on board. So I just thank you all for your patience as we continue to transition. Moving forward to the Metro Planning Housing Division update by Daryl.
Thank you. Daryl Hill with Metro Housing. Here to tell you guys that we are applying for a Pro Housing Grant, which is Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing. We will have 2 public meetings, both today. One will be here at 5:30, and the other will be at 11:30, and it'll be on WebEx. Now, what we propose to do with the grant is an $85 million grant. It is a nationwide. We are proposing to get $10 million, and the activities that we will do, one is to look at zoning and land policy in regards to middle housing. The other one is a technical grant for developers and also helping with their capacity. Then we also have a situation where we're looking at providing a guide to faith-based institutions to see if they want to be involved with housing. And then the one that's probably relevant to this committee is we will fund, preserve development for permanent supportive housing, and also the 0 to 30% AMI. And the last activity that we'll do, of course, will be grant administration. You can go to the planning website, nashville.gov, and that will give you the link if you want to do the virtual, which will be today at 11:30. And then if you want to come in person, that will be today at 5:30 in this room.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if you're the right person for this, but at one point we had asked for kind of an audit of available metro buildings. I don't know if that falls under you or if that's under someone else. Does anyone know where we stand with that?
I can go back to our team and see if we can get that. I'm not aware of that, but I'll look that and bring it back.
Jahar, April, do you remember?
So she actually did do an in-depth report. I think you may have been out, Angie Hubbard, and so I don't know if that, it should still be available, so I don't know what would be the best way to get that back out, but there was a report around, they looked at some of the land, what would be some of the steps to do that, and I don't remember what meeting that was. Does anyone remember?
I don't think they had finished the study.
Okay,
I'll check on it.
okay, if you could just let us know by next meeting, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Writing myself a note so we would remember this for the next meeting. So for the agenda for next meeting, this is for Allison to please remind me for the agenda to follow up about the Metro land usage for the November HPC meeting. So I do remember at the last meeting, there were questions around what's going on with the outdoor housing surge. What are we doing once we get folks into housing? What does that look like? What are some of the retention strategies? And so I said that we will follow up at this meeting. And so that is what we will be doing this point in the agenda. And we will have Joseph come and give us the outdoor housing surge best practices.
Good morning, everyone. Metro government, Nashville and Davidson County and the Nashville-Davidson County Curriculum of Care have largely coalesced around a strategy defined by HUD. This approach is described in HUD's report, Exploring Homelessness Among People Living in Encampments and Associated Costs. Nashville pairs this approach with intensive outreach and engagement and a housing surge event to move people living outdoors quickly indoors. The following component parts of the Nashville strategy include intensive outreach and engagement, housing-focused case management by skilled outreach teams to connect encampment residents with services to ensure every encampment resident has a permanent housing strategy. Also, housing surge, which includes resource-intensive housing efforts, for example, several housing fairs to match all encampment residents with either an interim housing placement and a pathway to permanent housing or immediate permanent housing placement. In the initial stages of defining a system-wide strategy for encampment decommissioning, coalition and system partners first identify and assess all large encampments throughout the region. This identification and assessment process is key to planning for the eventual housing surge process associated with clearing, closure, and support strategy. The site assessment also aids in the sequencing, the timing, and decommissioning, although multiple factors play into the exact timing of when a specific site is scheduled for decommissioning. The team assessing encampments shall consist of members of the Office of Homeless Services, community nonprofit COC members, and health workers. Community members were asked to express their willingness to be on the assessment. Team members shall remain static, and if a team member can no longer serve, they need to choose their replacement. Evaluation will be ranked in accordance with the following: vulnerability of population at 51%, location characteristics at 24%, and environmental health at 25%. Metro's role, we assisted with providing bins with individuals at the camp. We also have community partners who assist in purchasing move-in kits. Our team works closely with Salvation Army on interim gap housing and also with CCF programs at local churches throughout the city. Once housing is found for individuals, supportive services agencies will continue to engage because the work still isn't done. It's important to have those wraparound services to keep people involved in staying in housing, permanent housing. We assess the camps at least 3 months ahead of the move to gather a comprehensive list of individuals at the camp in need of housing, making sure that individuals are in our coordinated entry system before the move. That's a vital part of having the individuals housed, is making sure they're in our HMIS system. As project lead, the OHS, Office of Homeless Services, coordinates communication and tasks among all project partners, maintains cross-system collaboration protocols, including MOUs, partnership agreements, outreach standards, and protocols for housing surge events. We also define encampment targeted response schedule and work with prioritization encampment assessment teams to determine prioritization of encampments. We lead housing surge events and outreach efforts leading up to encampment restoration, and also conduct debriefing meetings with all encampment response teams and shelter committee members to identify successes and challenges and implement continuous improvement strategies. Thank you. Any questions?
So I know that was a lot of information, and I do want to make sure that you all are referencing this handout that is in your packet as well. Councilwoman Evans?
I just wanted to know, is that something that can be shared with the Metro Council? Because I think everything he said was very helpful explanation.
I think we also have I'm gonna let April to talk about that, the Council 101.
We have, I forgot that, October 16th, between 3 and 4, I believe. We have Homelessness 101, which is Vice Mayor Angie Henderson scheduled a 1-hour deep dive into homelessness with Metro Council members. And so this is one of the documents that we're looking to share, and we can also share it with the Health and Safety Committee, and it can be shared with all of the council members through that website, along with all the other documents that we share on the day of the Homelessness 101.
Any other questions? Yes, Freddie.
Just a statement. Joseph, I was very moved. I'm very impressed with you and your crew last week. You guys did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you guys do for our city.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I just want to acknowledge too, it's hard work. No matter how you are moving folks into housing, we understand there is still work to be done around retention strategies and how we do that and helping people to acclimate, because we know homelessness is trauma. And so then also sometimes once people are settled, all of those things begin to really take issue for folks. And so we try to do that in the most sensitive way and trauma-informed, human-centered way. And we recognize as a body that there is work to be done. I think one of the things that we are all looking at as a community, and I think April talked about it early on, and this is where I think collaboration is key, is that it's not just up to the Office of Homeless Services, but as each agency. I know, for those who may not know, I work for the VA Homeless Program, and one of the things that we teach with outreach is upon engagement and rapport building is we need to start the issue of document collection. And for us, it's a little bit different because we may have birth certificates in Germany trying to track down all over the place. And so sometimes what seems like we're leaving people lingering is a systems issue that we can't federally override in terms of some of the documentation that is needed. So one of the things I encourage each of us, as we are all sitting here and we all are in our different organizations, is that as soon as we start encountering people, how are we collecting those documents and how are we uploading them into HMIS so that then there are copies, there are records? I think it's easy for us to continuously look at what the other person is doing, but if we can all get better about that, I do think we will begin to see a more coordinated, seamless process, which is what we are working forward as a team. So again, thank you to your team, and not just the Office of Homeless Services, but also those other agencies within our continuum of care that continue to do this work. Any other questions or comments related to our encampment strategy?
I was just going to chime in on the document ready piece. So as part of the 100-day campaign to house families, there are multiple groups that have been working on creating a one-pager for staff and outreach workers and those in the community about what documents are required, where to find them. And what we're really finding helpful is currently through the 100-day challenge, we have a pot of funding at the United Way that can help organizations with the cost of those documents. And I think we'll see at the end of this that that's a critical piece of that document puzzle, and perhaps something we can look at continuing past that.
Absolutely. And sometimes there are workarounds that we try to mitigate as much as possible. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward to the story of progress, we will have Freddie talk about the Angel Tree Project.
Thank you. Wow. I think Angel Tree is one of our favorite time of year. It usually come like really fast. Like we finish on Angel Tree and then the next week is the other one. I mean, it seems like that. We started this year meetings for Angel Tree in May. I was like, oh my goodness. But there was this young lady, she was experiencing homelessness. She was fleeing from domestic violence. 2 kids, and she was expecting her third. She was 7 months pregnant, living in a van when our staff started working with her. It was right close to Thanksgiving. And we were able to sign the kids for Angel Tree. And it was just a life-changing experience just to see kids that were living in a van with nothing, and then a pile of gift from the Angel Tree program. But the story don't end there. 2 weeks after Christmas, the family got the keys to their apartment for permanent housing via other programs. So that was maybe the best Christmas for me, just to see the transition from living in a van, getting your Christmas gift, and getting your keys for your apartment just in a matter of 60 days, 70 days. It's amazing. Angel Tree has been going on for a city for Salvation Army for years. This year, our goal is 6,200 angels. That's our goal for this year. That includes children from 0 to 12 and seniors, 65 plus. We have partners with different organizations. We are helping inmates' families, make sure the kids get gifts. We have a whole person working with inmates' families. We're working with our Senator Ho. We're working with people who are experiencing homelessness. We're trying to help as many people as we can. We still have a few spots open. People can go into our website, Salvation Army Nashville, and sign up, but it's a first come, first serve, and we're moving really, really fast. Last year, we had a kid, he was like 12. He came in with his mom to help on the week that we're giving the gift. We have some very specific name. I don't know what it is. It's the week that we give away the gift. And he was helping, moving the gifts to the cars and helping with her mom. And after 3 hours, they had to go home. And he was like, Mom, can we stay longer? Because he just saw the faces of the families in the cars where they're giving all this gifts and all this love. So we're still looking for volunteers. Salvation Army is still looking for volunteers. Believe me, it will change your life. It will change your life. Thank you. I think that was 5 minutes.
Thank you. And for those who have not had the joy of doing that, they laugh at me in my office because that's one of the things I do enjoy doing in terms of just being able to share in that and to help bring joy to families during that time of year. So we encourage you to follow up, volunteer, and do whatever you feel moved to do. And so at this point, just a couple of things. If you look at the dates on your agenda, our next board meeting is November 8th. And then you also see the next Continuum of Care meeting, which has been mentioned, is November 16th. So just want to make sure people are mindful of those things. And then also April mentioned the opening for the Nashville Rescue Mission. And I guess that's my cue to wrap this meeting up. So we will adjourn at 9. 1 second, Susie.
I just wanted to let, there is an October meeting of the general membership, and it's next Thursday.
Okay.
So that is
Thank
the
you
next
for
one.
that. Perfect. Yes. Absolutely.
Good morning. Since we don't have Ginger anymore, I just wanted to give a little update about the COVID pods. So the engineer's letter went to the state that we were needing to have. The state came back with some additional questions about what was included in the letter. And so those questions are with the engineer. And then as soon as we get those answers, then basically we'll be ready for the state to kind of bless the use of the pods. And so I'll be working with Director Calvin to convene all of the Metro stakeholders per the original resolution that we passed on the council. So we will not have a plan. Originally, our goal was to have a plan for this coming Tuesday's meeting. We will not have a plan because we're still in progress, but I'll be looking for advice from anybody on, the planning council or anybody who's watching this who may have an interest from a nonprofit perspective or a faith partner who may be interested in eventually using, some of these pods at your site. So feel free to email me at aaron.evans@nashville.gov if you have input on that. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies for not asking if you had anything earlier. All hearts and minds clear, as they say. Okay. On a serious note, you all, we know that the world is in a lot of unrest. And so, again, I just encourage you all, take care of yourselves, be mindful of your own mental health and well-being, and do what you need to do to be well. And we will adjourn this meeting at 9:34. Thank you all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.